These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Listen, you guys know what this is all about, right? Right? What's it all about? Spurgey?
Hard work and having fun.
That. This is about winning.
Yeah, you darn right. I don't know how they're going to win in the free agency market because they don't really have any money, and their best player is essentially stuck in Russia. But that's not going to stop us
Reckless speculation
from speculating on what they might do here. Mackey and Judd, if you missed it, by the way, on Purple Daily yesterday, Kevin O'Connell, new Vikings head coach, joined the show for about 20 minutes and talked about what time he gets up in the morning and whether our Kirk Cousins critiques are off base or not, and a bunch of other stuff. It's the most listened to episode of the summer of Purple Daily so far. So thanks to everyone who's checked it out so far. If you missed it, Purple Daily, you can check it out. But we are 24 hours or so away from NHL free agency as we sit here and record this today, boys. So I'm going to throw it to the Judd's Hockey Show crew here. It looks on paper like they don't really have any money. They're definitely caught up in this Kirill Kaprizov Russia scary situation. So I don't even know what their appetite's going to be to try and get creative. But what could Billy be cooking up? Do you think he's going to sit back? Is he going to do something bold? What do you expect?
Well, I think the expectation is that with right now available cap room of $1.4 million, he will sit back and watch this unfold and perhaps chime in late in the process to get a forward, something like that. I don't think the Kaprizov situation is going to impact this. And my guess is at this point is they're optimistic he's going to be here. Now, I've said I'm concerned, but I think that they will probably operate with the assumption that he will be here until it really appears dire, because I don't think there's a lot of sense in saying like, well, if Kirill's not here, because then you're an okay team at best, if not sort of bad. So I think the Kirill thing is going to be, while top of mind, backburnered for the sake of right now, and just to hope that they can successfully get him and he can get himself out of Russia.
Assuming Kirill is indeed back, which a big assumption at this point with this very fluid hashtag 2020 situation that is going on with the Wild, you can make a serious case that how their roster is constructed right now, even the day before free agency opens, is the roster that's going to be there on opening night. The only one that really has to prove it is Marco Rossi. Now, Rossi had a pretty good camp last year. He made the case to make the roster, played well in the AHL. He got called up, I think, Judd, for just 1 or 2 games?
Couple games.
Out of a pinch, and mostly out of necessity because of injuries, and played admirably there. But there's probably a good belief that Marco Rossi will make the opening night roster. After that, I mean, everything is pretty much set in stone as it is, and they're going to almost have to run it back due to the buyouts to Parise and Suter. When you look at the goaltending situation, they locked up Marc-Andre Fleury. Cam Talbot's still also under contract for this year. So there's a serious case that as it's constructed right now, there really isn't going to be much more tweaks. And The Athletic actually this morning ranked every team's salary cap situation. Believe it or not, the Wild are actually 25th out of the NHL. There's actually 5 teams who have less cap space than the Minnesota Wild going in to free agency tomorrow. But I think mostly, I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's as it's constructed right now, if this is indeed the roster on opening night.
Real quick, let me ask this question, and I have a couple other for you guys too, but if this is it, if they don't really do much else other than maybe like some veteran depth or something, how good are they going to be? How are you, Kevin Fiala gone. You're going to try and replace him essentially internally. What type of team is this if they don't really do anything else, assuming that they do get Kaprizov back?
They're a team that takes a step back. I think that they are a wild card team at that point. I personally don't think that if they bring this roster back intact, I don't think that they're a top 3 team in their division, but I do think that they are probably a wild card team. But, you know, the important thing that we have to keep pointing out is Bill Guerin, to his credit, went for it with deadline deals this past season for a reason, because they had cap space for the last time in, 4 years, starting the clock in March, and because that presented them an opportunity with what they felt like was a very good team to go for it. That was no fluke. And Bill Guerin's not going to do that year after year after year. And so I think that they're a wild card type of contending team. But I certainly don't think that they're a team that I think had a franchise high 113 points this past season. I don't think they're that team. The thing is, I get really tired of, well, they're going to try and replace Fiala's production internally, or they're going to try and, you're not going to replace it. Like, you might have a guy get hot. Odds are better with the current construction of the roster that Hartman and Goudreau are going to show regression. Fiala will be gone, and you'll all take a step backwards.
But Boldy takes a step forward, probably,
Correct.
and just being on the team for the whole season.
Boldy and Fiala had a great chemistry. Now, so we're assuming that Boldy's going to find a guy like that to actually, because I like him a lot, but the reality is he and Fiala were a great pairing. So now the question becomes, on a line, can you find him line mates that are going to be a semblance as effective to help him as well, too? That doesn't mean that he's going to be bad. It does mean that you basically, when you called him up and paired him with a Fiala who was struggling at that time, you captured lightning in a bottle right there. So I wouldn't just assume that he's going to repeat the same offensive stats. I hope he does. But there's a lot of assumptions. The assumption of they'll replace Fiala's goals with, this guy and that guy. That's an assumption. Hartman, Goudreau were outstanding for them. It's a real assumption to say, well, that's them now. So there's just, and look, I'm not trying to say that they're going to suck. I am trying to say that the way I see the current roster construction, it is definitely probably a step backwards.
Their ceiling is probably a top 3 team in the division, as in more like the second and third spot in that division. I know Colorado's looking like they've moved on from Darcy Kemper. They acquired the Rangers' backup goaltender who now might be thrust into a starting role there for them. But the Wild still analytically and are still looking like they're tracking to be still a decent team in the 95 to 100 point win range. Now that's on the assumption that Kirill Kaprizov is obviously still here for 82 games, that Hartman and Zuccarello, who had career years, can repeat that, which I have more questions about Hartman than I do Zuccarello. And then also that their goaltending. So their goaltending, honestly, across the board a little bit underachieved last year. So Fleury hit a wall a little bit. Cam Talbot was so up and down, you never know which one you're going to go. But if you kind of put the average on that curve of both their games, is that better? Does that goaltending improve you and steal you, 2 or 3 more wins than your goaltending didn't do last year? So the goaltendingness is always so random in the NHL that analytics are saying that their goaltending actually should kind of level up a little bit and maybe offset some of those deficiencies, losing a Kevin Fiala, maybe a couple players coming down to earth after career seasons. I look at them as probably a 90 to 95 point team. I think that'd be their absolute ceiling going into next season.
It does kind of feel like and hockey is so it's so hard to say you missed your opportunity in a sport like hockey where it's not like you go in the NFL. If you're a 15-win Patriots team, when you have Tom Brady at quarterback, you are a heavy favorite to win the Super Bowl. There's really no such thing, even with the Avalanche. You're not really ever a heavy favorite, even as the best team, because it's such a gauntlet to get through the 4 rounds in the playoffs. But it does kind of feel like, all right, last year was about as open as the window was going to be for maybe another 2 years, and now it's kind of. It almost feels like Judd, you're almost accepting of the fact that, well, all right, next couple of years they're not going to be terrible, but the expectations should probably be reset.
I feel really good about what they're building. I feel really good about it. Like, this is the correct process. They're doing this right. God bless them. Fletch traded draft picks to me, you, and Stella. I mean, he would trade draft picks at a drop of a hat. You look at what they're doing to replenish the entire organizational depth, it's the right move. So I like what they're doing. I'm just saying the reality of the Parise and Suter contracts is very simple. At some point in time, they were going to come back and bite you in the ass if you didn't win a cup. And so if you bought them out, they were going to bite you. If you let them play out, they were going to bite you. So the reality for Guerin was he just had to decide what poison pill he was going to swallow. This was not his fault. This was not his doing. But what I love is if you look at this, he is building up a roster now, and more importantly, a young organizational depth roster that is going to give the Wild something I would argue they've never had. Risebrough didn't do this. Fletcher certainly did not. I mean, Guerin will move draft picks, but he keeps them. He accumulates them. He has really done a great job of building up depth. And so I do feel that the end game here is something that you actually can see.
Yeah, and isn't that a little bit like in the NFL? You're ultimately, there's a bunch of different ways to win a Super Bowl, but the most common way is you got to find young players, particularly a quarterback, on rookie scale contracts so that you can have that nucleus that hasn't emerged into the $20-30 million range. In the NHL, it's almost like the Wild fairly successfully actually did it the other way around for 8 or 10 years, where we're going to start with these two historically huge contracts for players that they're kind of the Kirk Cousins of their like Zach Parise was not one of the top 5 or 10 forwards in the NHL, but he was paid like it for a while. So we're going to start there, and then we're going to trade first and second round draft picks for players that are decent, but we're pretty much desperate to make moves at the deadline for Pominville and for some of the other players, right? And they wound up going to the playoffs on a regular basis. So what you're saying is putting together a young nucleus and just having those. Maybe if you have 3 or 4 players that blow up, maybe Boldy's another one of them, Rossi, right? But they're not getting paid really for another few years. Mm-hmm. But there's another path here that I want to ask you about, which is more of a pie in the sky path this week.
Reckless speculation.
But before we get into that, let me shout out our friends at Valley Park Medical Clinic here. So guys, you don't have to be embarrassed, okay? If you suffer from ED, like a lot of guys do, it happens. The folks at Valley Park Medical Clinic are dedicated to providing breakthrough remedies for you if you live in the greater Minneapolis area. Their approach is medical. You'll meet with a medical provider in a discreet way. You can ask confidential questions in a confidential professional environment. The treatments are surgery-free, drug-free, non-invasive. Get this area of your life handled, guys. ValleyParkMedicalClinic.com. That's ValleyParkMedicalClinic.com. Also, it's riding season out there for at least the next, 3 months or so. And our friends at Dennis Kirk, whether you ride a Harley, Indian, Metro Cruiser, or sport bike, they've got you covered with over 160,000 parts and accessories in stock, same-day shipping on orders placed before 8 p.m., and free shipping on orders over $89. Ride more, wait less. DennisKirk.com.
Speculation.
What is the most pie-in-the-sky, biggest thing Bill Guerin could do in the next 2 weeks?
So I will start off by saying I'm not even sure I like this thought. And until yesterday afternoon, I laughed at this thought. But
That's okay.
Evgeni Malkin, 36, Penguins, probably Hall of Fame center. Evgeny has reached a breaking point in his contract talks with the Penguins, the only team he's known. He's so down in the dauber about this that Sidney Crosby reportedly flew to Malkin's home in Florida. That's right, he didn't go home. He flew to Malkin's home in Florida.
Stay in the United States,
kids. Yes. I'm sure he's in some gorgeous
or
house.
Canada.
And guess what? Putin ain't getting to him. But Crosby flew to see his friend to check on him, not even to facilitate a contract, to check. So this guy is really down. This guy is looking for a friend. He's looking for somebody to say, Evgeny, we value you. And I think what hurts his feelings the most is Chris Letang. So it basically goes Crosby, Malkin, Letang are the 3 long-standing Penguins. And Chris Letang just got a multi-year contract from Pittsburgh. And so Malkin is the odd man out. The Penguins on Monday signed Rickard Rakell to a contract extension who they had acquired from the Ducks at the deadline. And I think that put a nail in the coffin there. So I think the Penguins said, we tried, and supposedly their offer was 2 years, 6 per, so 12 total. And the Penguins said, we tried, it didn't work. Now, I know on the surface, from a salary cap standpoint, I talked about it before, the Wild has $1.4 million in available room. This seems crazy. But I'm going to paint the picture. And I will say this. This comes with, and all reckless speculation is born of something that you come across. So like,
Reckless speculation.
this is sports detective work here because I started
wow.
to do some research.
Wow.
I started to do some research and find out. Now, the starting point is this. Malkin played with Billy Guerin in Pittsburgh. So they're friends. They won cups. They're tight. Guerin actually was then the assistant GM for Pittsburgh when Gino was there. And so, like, there is a relationship. So I think the first question, though, and it's a fair one, is, well, Judd, the cap room. Like, you just brought this up, you moron. How are you going to clear the cap room, Judd? What are you going to do? So I got the old notepad from Cub Foods.
Oh, man.
Reckless speculation.
TNT.
Wow.
I have 3 paths to clearing the cap space. And it
Wow.
actually is not that hard. It actually is not that hard. And stick around because
I'm gonna text
at the
Billy each
end,
one of these.
Stick around, folks.
at the end, I'm going to give you the, oh my God, this makes sense now. So, but let's start clearing the cap space. All right. 3 scenarios. Scenario 1, Tyson Jost, $2 million. Nice player,
Yeah.
but expendable.
Sure.
That's $2 million. In a trade, the next player to go with him. So I'm clearing this at once. It's scenario 1. Dmitry Kulikov, $2.3 million, 8-team no trade list, but I can get past that.
That's not, yeah, there's plenty,
So
plenty of
it's
fish
fine.
in the sea out there. Plenty of
Exactly
fish.
right.
How Dmitry Kulikov got a limited no movement clause
Yeah.
is one of the most boggling things
From-
that we don't talk about.
From our guy, too. Like, I'm
Yeah.
amazed.
I think I saw in the NBA, it wasn't like, didn't Bradley Beal just become like the 8th player to ever have a no trade clause? And in the NHL, it's like
There you go.
third line players just have half the league.
Jake
on their-
Layman. Here's a no movement clause.
Why would Bradley Beal want a no movement clause from that franchise?
Dude,
Anyway,
I
digress.
think it was him, but yeah. It's
I
weird.
digress. So the third guy in a trade, so Jost Kulikov, that's a total of $4.3 million right there. The
And what are we
third
trying to
guy,
get to again?
Okay, so we're trying to clear around 6.
Okay.
So we're
Clear
trying
6.
because my idea is a 3-year contract at $7 million per, and
Wow.
right now you're 1.4 below. He's gonna want. I mean, he ain't getting 9, but he's gonna want a competitive contract. And I will also tell you where you're going to plug him in and why they might justify this. But the third guy in a trade, Jordan Greenway at $3 million.
Okay.
So that is 2,
Big rig.
2.3, and 3. And by the way, yeah, Jordan Greenway, eminently expendable. I know the grief line, great playoff line. Well, what happened in the playoffs last year? Nothing. So trade 1 is Jost, Kulikov, Greenway. That clears out 7.3.
Okay, I love this. I love this. Just to back up a step.
There's more where this came from, too.
But to actually acquire Malkin would be a free agent signing. You wouldn't
Correct.
have to give anything up. So
I got to clear these guys out.
So I am not, if I'm the Wild here, I am not mortgaging future first round picks,
Nope.
or I'm not,
No.
and you didn't list any young players there that I would get too upset about. So you're kind of offload. And what would you get in return for those 3 guys? To whatever team.
You might
Dex,
get
take a guess.
You might get a.
You don't care is what you're saying,
serviceable-
but-
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care because at the end of the day, I'm getting Malkin, but you can get back a quality top 9 player.
But you
That-
but
that's
you don't want
slappy.
players back, right? You want to clear
Right.
the room. So you
Draft
want like
picks.
draft picks,
You can
right?
get draft picks, but you get draft
Greenway,
picks probably back.
second round pick.
You can probably get a
round pick,
second
you
or
know.
third. Yeah.
Okay.
Jost, don't know. Kulikov, not much, but I'm fine with that one. I'm absolutely fine with that
Okay.
one. So scenario 1 is to purge those 3 from my roster.
Wow.
Scenario 2 gets you there quicker with fewer players, and this one actually might make the most sense. Greenway, and again, I'm just not. I've seen enough, and I know we like, oh yeah, big rig, and when he's playing well, he's great, but he doesn't play well enough. He coils me way too much. Like there's too much coil there. And look, he might go to a team and be a complimentary piece. That's fine.
CC syndrome. Charlie Crow syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. Greenway and the disgruntled, petty BS goaltender. I'm done with this, Cam Talbot, who's going to make $3.7 million in 2022-23, a combined savings of 6.7 right there off the top. So I almost would be. I think Cam Talbot. I don't like this. I don't like his attitude. I don't like this trend, and I don't like him thinking that the Wild owes a journeyman goaltender something.
Yeah.
So that's my second one, and I can't. In my heart of hearts, gents, I can't believe Bill Guerin wants this guy back. I know he's under contract, and I know that he can be to a certain point bullied because he can't bully Bill Guerin. But that being said, I don't know that I want this, I need an extension, then screw you, you're a journeyman. Your wife's out there threatening the team, basically. I don't like that. I don't need that. I've been through that. I've been down that path with better players, and I'm sick of it.
And Bill Guerin
for petty bull.
Billy.
Exactly. He basically said that by saying, I don't have bleep to think about. Who are you?
Right.
Your camp. The reason why we had to go and create this conundrum in the first place is because you were terrible for 2 months. Now I get it. Talbot probably deserved. I mean, Talbot was better down the stretch, but not the best way to handle it. And so I'm good with shipping his ass out for Malkin. Let's do it. Let's get him.
And as Dex can tell you as well, there are free agent goaltenders who are going to be available starting Wednesday, but there are probably more teams than decent goaltenders, and so. Right now, the Washington Capitals have 0 starters. They've traded both of their goaltenders. So I'm just saying, I think Cam Talbot could be leveraged for more than we think by desperate teams, because Cam is not bad. It's very clear now he is a shelf life guy.
Billy?
Yeah.
I don't like what's happened to me. Well, I don't care if you like it or not.
I don't love the idea of getting like a Martin Jones or a Thomas Greiss, but if it's a backup, and it gets me Malkin, right. In the grand scheme of things, I can live with it.
Scenario 3 is basically a straight non-trade trade. Offload Dumba at $6 million.
Yeah,
that gets you there. Now you say to me, but Judd, what are your defensive pairings then? What are you going to do? Whatever shall you do? You know what? Right here in the Cub notebook, I got it written down. Defensive pairings. Middleton and Spurgeon, Brodin, and Kalen Addison, who, by the way, is a power play guy, and they need to give him a chance. Third pairing, Goligoski or Merrill, or both of them together. The point is, you've got options there. And do I think, and I do like him, but do I think Matthew Dumba is this untouchable defense? No, I don't. I think he's a nice player, but he's hurt a lot. I think that there was a time where I was afraid that he might turn into the next Brent Burns, but Dex, I think he's hurt so much now. I don't think that fear is still there. Exactly right. So I think that the transition to defensive pairings, and if Kulikov does not get traded, your third defensive pairing could actually be Goligoski or Merrill and Kulikov. Right. So the point is, replacing Dumba, especially if Kalen Addison develops, is really not that hard.
Yeah, and Dumba's going to be an unrestricted free agent after this season. So what kind of contract is he even going to get from the Wild? Like, does he swallow hard and take less money or take the similar contract he got last time? Does he want to test the waters? I mean, he's 27 right now. I would honestly rather roll, and I know your goal is to get Malkin here for a 3-year contract. Honestly, I would just roll the dice, and I would overpay for him for 1 year. He's 35 years old. He's battled injuries. He's a Hall of Fame player. But let's be honest, he's probably not gonna command a big multi-year contract. I'd rather give him 1 year, even 7.5 or 8, to run it back this year. Hey, build up your value, and if you want to cash in again next offseason, you can. I'd be much more in the camp of giving him a 1-year deal. I don't believe there's such a bad thing as a 1-year contract. So I'd rather overpay for him, get him under contract for this season, try to let it ride, try to get a little bit better, try to help out Kirill Kaprizov and all your other wing players too that are gonna need his services. So that's where I would rock. I wouldn't be really interested in a multi-year contract for Malkin, but if it cleared Dumba and I have 1 year of Malkin, I would do it. in a heartbeat.
I kind of love this. I just think it would be super fun with Malkin on the team. And I don't know what, maybe you guys have seen, are there like 3 or 4 obvious options out there of teams that he would go to? It seems like, in terms of, okay, you're going to leave the place that you've played 16 years at. It's the only team that you've ever played for, the Pittsburgh Penguins. You have multiple Stanley Cup championships. Right. Moving to another team is a big deal.
Yep.
Ziflower, Bill Guerin, like 2 of his pillar
Moscow
former
on the
teammates.
Hill, right in St. Paul.
Yes.
For real? If he's here.
We got the drinks. We got the food. What more could you want? Yeah,
it makes some sense. And from a, and I don't know if he gives a rip about this, but from a legacy standpoint, hey, you can come to the state of hockey, and you can help bring the first ever Stanley Cup championship to the state of hockey.
Yep.
Where legends like Lou Nanne are here awaiting you, yacht trips, wherever you want to go. Let's make it happen here. I think it's a fun idea.
So in Declan's world, you would have to offload like Dumba and Jost, because he's going with.
Would you get a first round pick for Dumba?
I don't.
Late first round pick from someone. A good team that would pick late.
I don't think so. Carolina it was reported today Carolina was potentially kicking the tires because they lost Tony DeAngelo, I believe, or are losing him to free agency, or they're going to replace him.
He was traded 3 draft picks to the Flyers because
and
Fletcher's an idiot.
Brent Burns is on their radar, apparently, I think, to Pierre LeBrun. I mean, Dumba would be the more logical option if I'm Carolina. Same thing, too. Like, let it ride, and if you want to extend him after the season, do it. But I would also that's what I would do. I would get rid of him and just do 1 year of Malkin.
So if you do this, here is your opening night center depth chart, and this is where it gets intriguing. Okay, Malkin, Rossi, Ek, and then if you want, Hartman. This gets Hartman into a position that he probably belongs before you accept the regression you're almost certainly going to get. And it puts Malkin with Kaprizov. A couple of Ruskies together, they can play together. I think they're friends. I think they're buddies. This is as much of an olive branch as you can give to Kaprizov, of course, assuming he's here, as you can possibly get.
Is Putin on good terms with Malkin?
Malkin's in Florida, dude. He didn't go home. Who cares?
I know. No, I'm asking.
Oh, you're saying okay. Yeah. You know what? I'm calling Ovechkin, and I'm saying, Alex, we will under the table get you as much money as you possibly need. You go to Putin because he's basically in the cabinet. Like, he's in the cabinet. Yeah, Ovechkin and Putin are tight. But okay, the detective work comes into play here. Because all of this sounds great, but you're like, Judd, okay, it sounds really fun, but it's reckless speculation. It's typical Score North crap. And you've given
to this point, this is clickbait.
Exactly.
And thank you to everyone who's made it 28 into this just egregious clickbait episode here of Mackie and Judd.
Nothing that really firmly tells me that Malkin would sign with the Minnesota Wild. Now here is, it's not even a conspiracy theory. Here are connecting the dots, and this is where reckless speculation crosses a line into oh my god, sports dad is sports detective today. All right, so Guerin and Malkin played together, but more importantly, sort of oddly, I mean, I get it because they're friends, but I was a little bit surprised. Why was Flower re-signed to a 2-year contract, Judd? I've been racking my brain. Like, did this make total sense? Because he's not a young man, and he played okay here, but I mean, the playoffs were not great. Why didn't you just let him walk? What are you doing, Billy? What are you doing? Let me, as Exhibit A, enter into evidence of reckless speculation a photo that if you are watching us right now, I will show you from my phone. I will describe it if you're not.
Are these nudes?
Oh, God.
This is Geno Malkin, if I can get
there
this.
Go.
There you
this is Geno Malkin. Can you see what this is? He's wearing a Penguins jersey backwards with Marc-Andre Fleury's 29 when Fleury went in the expansion draft to the Vegas Golden Knights that says my MVP.
Oh, and my.
He put out a note that basically said, Flower, blah, blah, blah. They are very good friends.
Reckless speculation.
Gino don't feel loved right now. He don't feel the love. Malkin is looking for the love, right?
And doesn't he have wouldn't you say that the three figures that he likely loved the most in Pittsburgh over the years? Crosby, for sure, right? His wingman. The flower.
The flower.
Marc-Andre Fleury.
No question about it, Phil.
And maybe the old wily vet, Billy Guerin. If he's got a Mount Rushmore of people that made him feel loved, people that supported him, I'd say at least half of that Mount Rushmore is in the state of hockey right now.
Oh, my God.
Who better to lift your day when you're down in trouble and you need a helping hand than the Flower, who is a gregarious, fun guy who can say, Gino, you will be loved here. And keep in mind, too, in Pittsburgh, if he goes back, and this is not a huge problem, second line. Here,
Yeah.
Capri,
There's nothing else to do in Pittsburgh. There's nothing else to accomplish in Pittsburgh at this point.
Get to play with Kirill, possibly, hopefully, knock on wood, and you are the first line center, and there ain't no questions asked right now.
I love this. I think this is great, and it doesn't. You just mapped out three paths that all of them make perfect sense. I think ideally you'd like to hang on to Dumba because he's in his prime and when he's healthy, he's still a really good player. If you're going to make a run at a cup, you'd like Dumba to be a part of that. But Billy Guerin just kind of seems like the type of dude that's not going to sit back and do nothing. He just doesn't strike me as a guy that's going to say, "We're good. We're gonna trade Fiala and just kind of take our lumps here the next couple years." I guess we'll see.
Dex?
I'm all for this idea. I mean, like I said, I got the Twins season tickets. I'm thinking about the Wolves season tickets with Gobert. You get Evgeni Malkin. I'll just have all the season tickets. I'll be broke as hell. Well, I don't. Next contract could be better. We'll see. I'm gonna have to get that up just for season tickets. How about that?
You can negotiate that you don't want more money. You just want season ticket packages.
Here's what I want. Just some comp fees here. Give me some talent fees, and I'll waive that, and then I'll just do reads for season tickets.
I'm sure that'll go great with the gal. I'm sure she'll be thrilled.
She would love that. We're going with the entire family to the Twins game tonight with their season tickets. It's going to be great.
I'm no longer drawing a paycheck. My check is those Wolves ducats for next Wednesday's game.
But hey, it's very exciting. It's a clash against the LeBron Lakers.
Anyway, I think that this is. I'm trying to figure out what Billy is doing here, and the Fleury-Malkin relationship to which Billy is sort of in between. It makes some sense.
Let's see what happens. I love Detective Judd here on the prowl.
Reckless speculation.
It's great. There's your dose of wild speculation about a day before NHL free agency opens